Hi, I'm Tracy Castles, PhD, the founder of Evolutionary Parenting. Today I want to talk to you about sleep with an orchid or high needs child, specifically about the struggles some parents face regarding sleep for their little ones who are just more sensitive than others. Some families seem to have to ask the question, will my child ever sleep? More than anyone else, and unfortunately our culture is not designed to help them at all. I often say that the majority of families I work with have these children, which is why all of what they've tried before has failed them. What is needed is both awareness of what is going on, so they can set appropriate expectations, and some practical advice that works with these specific kids. So, who is this type of child, and what does this look like in infancy and toddlerhood? I admit I'm a fan of the orchid construct as the basis for understanding behaviors. But the Sears's high needs baby construct and Dr. Aaron's highly sensitive child construct provide more information on specific behaviors that are useful for families to look to. But it's likely that all three concepts speak to the same type of child. The term orchid, as it's used for children, was coined by Dr. W. Thomas Boyce, who's spent decades researching these children and their long-term outcomes. The use of orchid is to highlight the fact that these are children who are far more susceptible to their environments than other kids, like the orchid flower. They're the ones who require that near perfect environment to thrive. Now, they make up about 20% of the population, so they are a sizable minority, but a minority nonetheless, which is why many parents struggle when they look to families around them and see kids who are just so very different from their own. The biological basis that I believe helps us understand the behaviors we see include two key elements. One, environmental awareness. Now, orchid children are very aware of their surroundings. This awareness seems to start at birth and continues for the duration of their lives. Many families of orchids that I've worked with report that their orchid babies were born and highly alert from the very start. Now, their babies seem to take everything in, and it's as if nothing gets by them. This awareness seems to be a key feature in their ability to detect threat, and they may even be more sensitive to identifying potential threats, even when none are there. Some of the behaviors that families report seeing that stem from this include kids, toddlers and up, who listen to every word you say, even the swear words, or who notice minute details that others miss. Kids who seem to struggle to shut their minds down at bedtime, always asking questions or looking to keep moving at all times. Dislike of busy places because of the amount of sensory input. The second one is biological reactivity. Now, this refers to their stress response to minor and moderate stressors, and is actually the way in which orchids are identified in research settings. Now, whereas dandelions have a more muted response to stress, orchids can go off the charts. Although most babies don't regulate very well at birth, it's part of being a baby, some seem to do much worse. Now, they may struggle with regulation at all physiological levels, temperature, heart rate, and so on, as well as emotionally. These babies require more of what's called co-regulation, or how adults help regulate their babies through soothing or proximity. A baby who's touching his or her caregiver can actually regulate better as they use information from the caregiver to do this. Some of the behaviors you may see in a child due to this biological reactivity include a baby that will scream blue murder when put down, sensitivity to sensory stimulation such as lights, noise, textures, etc., stronger separation anxiety, very quick to react, so babies that go from 0 to 100 when distressed. Lots of breastfeeding, as they use breastfeeding as a means to regulate. As we can see, these struggles make it hard for families in a culture where work and productivity is expected. I believe that there's a cycle that many families of orchid children face, especially in terms of sleep, that is not helpful. You see, these families face more practical struggles because of the intensity and quantity of the needs of their little ones that are often incompatible with our society who expects children to bend to the will of the adults around them. Then families are given the advice to sleep train and push for more independent sleep for these kids, the exact opposite of what these children actually need when we think about their biological reactivity and need for co-regulation. This doesn't solve the problem, and in fact can lead to even greater struggles with sleep as children become more resistant and fearful of the nighttime. It also has another implication, feelings of failure for the parents. One of the most common themes for parents I work with is this idea that it's them who have failed, and this can lead to intense depression and anxiety, which isn't helpful for anyone. If parents return to what kind of worked, they face judgment and criticism and a complete lack of empathy from others, who now say they've done all this to themselves. Now, it's a horrible situation for everyone, as these feelings are not conducive to good mental health for parents or positive parenting. And although there are many areas that families of orchid children can struggle with, all of which I discuss and cover in my course Raising Orchids, available through Evolutionary Parenting, sleep is one of the biggest. When it comes to sleep, there are several common struggles for families of higher needs children that make sense given their own struggles. The first is difficulty falling asleep. Those anxieties that run through their heads, even at young ages when they're picking up everything from the world around them, can make falling asleep difficult. Now, most parents report that their orchids require more assistance to fall asleep at night, whether it's nursing, rocking, cuddling, etc. This is very normal given the struggles they can have to shut things down in their head, and physiologically, because we help them regulate in this regard. This means resetting expectations about independent sleep and knowing that you will need to be there for some years to come. It also highlights how important it is for them to have ways of calming their brain before sleep, whether it's a guided meditation, pink noise, massage, and so on. 2. Frequent wakings. Especially at younger ages, orchids can wake frequently and for a number of reasons. They'll also require parental assistance to fall back asleep. The problem is that as parents, we start looking for reasons for these wakings, reasons we can ameliorate, but often we just won't know what they are until they're older. Sometimes it's fears or anxieties that creep into their head, but sometimes it's sensory, and our kids may not have the capacity to share this with us. Of course, you can try to address common sensory concerns, such as removing any white or blue light from the bedroom, removing tags from sleeping clothes, checking how the fabric feels, or checking temperature to make sure it's not too hot or cold. And then you may find things that work well for you. If you think it's psychological, then I urge you to help create space at night to calm the brain, either using pink noise during your evening time or talking to your orchid about their day to help them conceptualize all that happened, especially in the event of anything distressing. Number 3, lack of independent sleep. Orchids are not known for their innate ability to sleep alone, and this isn't just for babies, but for years after. Co-sleeping is a very common method of increasing sleep for everyone when you're the parent of an orchid, even if you didn't plan on going this route earlier. If you know this in advance, you can set up your sleeping arrangements in ways that will facilitate this closeness as best as possible, while ensuring everyone is comfortable. This may include a sidecar crib, a larger floor bed, combining beds to make a large family bed, and so on. Number 4, will not tolerate a crib. Many, but not all, orchids seem to end up hating the crib at a certain point. I don't know if it's sensory or if it's the anxiety that can come with feeling trapped and unable to have control over moving out of that space. The problem for parents of orchids who are desperately pushing the crib is that it can lead to massive bedtime resistance. The orchid will extend the anxiety of the crib to the entire room and can end up fighting any cue to sleep, which creates larger problems. Often either using it as a sidecar crib or ditching it for a floor bed can make a world of difference. Number 5, struggle with change. Orchids don't like change, as it triggers a sense of threat. This doesn't mean that change isn't possible, but the key is to remember that orchids need more time. Because orchids are just as sensitive to their nighttime environment as they are their daytime environment, they often can feel far more threatened or scared, and will need baby steps to get to feelings of safety and security. In order to feel safe, they need you, and they may take more time to adapt to changes like moving to a new room. Sleep with an orchid isn't an easy thing for many families, but if you understand why your child may struggle and set realistic expectations, it can make all the difference. If you're interested in learning more about the Raising Orchids course, a free sample is available online for you to check out. All of our orchids deserve a chance to thrive, and it's up to us as parents to provide that.